Thursdays are traditionally bumper news days in Mzansi, so expect this edition of The Lead to mirror that. First, we catch you up with all the main takeaways from KwaZulu-Natal police boss Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's grilling, or some would say fairly tame questioning, in Parliament this week. This, with our parliamentary correspondent Gerber, is our top story today.
I got the impression that Mkhwanazi was kind of like reminding politicians, ANC politicians specifically, that they know about what's going on and that it would cause a lot of trouble if these things come out. The country will burn, he said. That's very Zuma-esque, to say, oh, I've got intelligence. If you come after me, I'll make that intelligence known. That's very Zuma-esque.
Meanwhile, there have been raids on the homes of Tender Don Morgan Maumela as well as top cop Shadrack Sibiya. And then, in our training topic, Bafana Bafana are facing a decision, do or die, heading into their final 2 FIFA World Cup qualifiers, first up against neighbours Zimbabwe in Durban. Our football journo Tashreeq Vardien makes his lead debut.
Zimbabwe don't really have somewhat of a grip on Bafana Bafana, although they have victories. The victories and the draws that have come for Zimbabwe has been in international friendlies and COSAFA Cup matches. Those matches are considerably known as the lesser known matches. For Bafana Bafana, most of their victories have come obviously in Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers, sometimes at AFCON. Bear in mind, Zimbabwe are also in our group at the 2025-2026 Africa Cup of Nations that kicks off in December.
And finally, did you know South African once traversed the famous Channel Tunnel wearing flip-flops? Keep listening for On This Day in South African History at the end of the show.
New episodes of The Lead air Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m.
My name's Graham Robenheimer. This is The Lead. And yes, people, this is the South African story. Die poppe is besig om te dans. Translated, the dolls are dancing? Well, it means the chickens have simply come home to roost, whilst the SIU raids Tender Don Morgan Maumela's Sandton mansion as we speak, seizing assets in its probe into the Tembisa Hospital tender scam. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi wrapped up his evidence before Parliament's ad hoc committee at midnight on Wednesday night. And our senior parliamentary journalist, Gerber, well, he's certainly been burning the midnight oil to try and keep us abreast of all the developments over the last 48 hours plus. He's joining us in our Cape Town studios now. Jan, welcome back to The Lead.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sure, it's been a lot to get through. For the most part, I want to say that the committee has been sort of it's played a bit of a supplementary role to the main Nhlanhla Commission. It's obviously there's been replication, but there's been some political spice. What's stood out for you off the top of your head thus far?
The committee is going to be really upset if you say they did a supplementary role to the Nhlanhla Commission. They've been very Parliament, they have an important role to play. They're not the junior partners to Nhlanhla Commission, as Maumela put it. In my view, there hasn't been enough political spice in that committee. I thought the MP's questioning of Mkhwanazi was really poor yesterday. They didn't unearth much new information that we haven't heard at the Nhlanhla Commission. They didn't push back on some of the really wild things that General Mkhwanazi said. And yeah, I just thought it was. I've been covering inquiries and stuff where the questions were much more probing and actually delivered new information. While this commission was really flat. It was really poor.
Wow. Okay. And yeah, it's hours, quite irregular. Okay. Let's begin chronologically with what we sort of learned. That's perhaps new information, or perhaps wrapping up information that was first brought forward, or allegations first brought forward by Mkhwanazi during his 3 days at the Nhlanhla Commission in Pretoria. Let's start with one of the central points, and that's been the role of, or alleged role of, MPs or certain MPs in the allegations of criminal capture of the state and the facilitation of sensitive crime intelligence information. Let's begin with the DA's MP, Diane Kohler-Barnard. Some of the MPs wanted her recused. Why?
Yes. So Diane Kohler-Barnard, she serves on the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. She did so in the previous term as well. That committee does its work behind closed doors, and MPs are liable for prosecution if they disclose information there. However, before that, the new Parliament's committee has been constituted. Early this year, I think it was in January, our colleague Carl Cohen did a story about crime intelligence spending a massive amount of money buying properties. She posed parliamentary questions, which is her job as an MP. And this is what Mkhwanazi accused her of criminality, because she posed questions from information that was in the public. He says she should have done it at the JCI. To me, it seems like part of whenever somebody tries to look into crime intelligence, try and put the spotlight on what they're doing, Mkhwanazi accuses you of criminality. It's the same with IDAC, the same with our colleagues in the media.
Right. But I think the Fardeel Adams saga is a little bit different.
Once again, crime intelligence crops up. I'm not entirely sure where Mr. Adams got this information from, but General Mkhwanazi alleges that he got it from somebody in crime intelligence. He laid charges against the head of CI.
In two different locations, if I remember correctly, what we heard from Nhlanhla, and our colleague Karen and Morn and I were chatting about this. Yeah. It was one in Orlando and one in Cape Town.
Yes. So, and following from those charges, I think it's General Kumalo and other CI officers were arrested, and they, stand in trial now. So, again, when somebody's seeking to hold CI to account, General Mkhwanazi alleges that you've been doing something dodgy. He didn't present any evidence why what Adams did was criminal.
Sure. Okay. Let's move. And we're going to come back to CI again because bear with us, lead listeners and viewers. This is as you would say in Afrikaans, Jan, 'n ingewikkelde storie die.
Yeah, it's got a lot of tentacles.
100%.
But it all points to CI.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. We're starting to see that picture emerge a little bit more in one direction. Let's go to IDAC. It's the teeth of the NPA. It's a specific body given more teeth as per the Zondo recommendations to prosecute more strongly or to take on cases where they get a little bit more of unfettered powers. Of course, IDAC's essentially been accused for the most part by Mkhwanazi of also being captured in some respects. What did he elaborate on before parliamentarians that we haven't heard at Nhlanhla? Yeah?
I'm trying to think back what we heard from Nhlanhla. Basically, his complaint about IDAC is that it followed through on the Adams charge and arrested Kumalo.
Right.
He says there are bad people in IDAC. He mentioned a certain Mr. Badayachi, I think. And he basically questions how dare they arrest or prosecute the CIA head.
Right.
He didn't present any evidence why it was wrong, by the way.
And just to preface that and to caveat that, of course, IDAC, as we're expecting here at News 24, there, and we've reported on this quite vehemently, is that they are going to be taking their own evidence to the Nhlanhla Commission once it resumes later this month, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I suspect that I suspect they would, because the thing is, South Africans have been complaining that IDAC has been too cautious, has been too slow in prosecuting people. So I think they wouldn't have moved if they didn't have the ducks in a row. But we'll see. Yeah, well, we should see. But there's definitely a move from Mkhwanazi to keep these things out of the public eye.
Right. The line of questioning from the various different political parties represented within this ad hoc committee has taken us in all other directions as well. Let's talk to the political killings task team as a central theme of it all, because that's also what it all comes down to. The disbandment letter. We got a little bit more information about how this letter sort of came about. We know that Mchunu, the now suspended police minister, had affixed his signature to it, but he didn't really draft the letter, according to Mkhwanazi?
Yeah. I assume ministers have staff drafting letters for them. I would Mkhwanazi's reasoning for alleging that is a bit superficial, I guess, like based on assumptions. We will have to hear from Mchunu himself what happened there. There will probably be a paper trail. It does seem that Mr. Mchunu's chief of staff, Cedric Nkabindi, is somehow involved in all of this. So he's one of the personalities who probably popped up a bit more during this testimony than he did in the Nhlanhla Commission. And it's almost like Mkhwanazi backed off a bit on Mchunu. He was like, he won't say he's corrupt, but he might be used, that type of thing, or that he's that people are furthering his political career while he allows them to go on with criminality, that type of thing. Again, not a lot of evidence.
Yes. Mkhwanazi was quite emphatic, and again, this is a little bit of a hangover from Nhlanhla, is that he believes that President Cyril Ramaphosa was not fully aware of what Mchunu was getting up to, essentially.
It could be. We'll have to if the president will respond to that. I assume he will have to appear before either the ad-hoc committee or the Nhlanhla Commission, or both, the president. Mkhwanazi's reasoning is again based on the fact that Ramaphosa expressed his support or said the task team is doing a good job in May this year, like a few months after the supposed disbandment letter was issued. And that's why he says that Ramaphosa wasn't aware of the disbandment.
Right.
Or but Mchunu's plans to disband the task team.
Yeah. Perhaps Ramaphosa was shocked, since he's...
Probably.
It was one of his favorite pastimes. Okay, but before we get to this, you had this excellent theory about the MKP MP's line of questioning to Mkhwanazi. They obviously, as a party, a big supporter of him, but notwithstanding he's from KwaZulu-Natal, but of course he's the provincial police commissioner.
Yeah, and he made it clear that he's apolitical, and it was quite interesting. His own political views are very contradictory. But I think first of all, they really enjoyed him having a pop at IDAC, because that's pretty much what they've been doing since they came to Parliament. They're busy with a campaign trying to discredit every institution that is trying to hold people account for state capture, while at the same time also alleging that there's state capture under Ramaphosa. So obviously these allegations coming up now suits that narrative.
Sure. And did you feel like their questions were probing enough?
No. I'm trying to be diplomatic here.
And fair.
I don't think that the MPs in that committee are particularly bright.
Sure. But Julius was the EFF leader. Julius Malema was quite vocal.
Yeah, as he is. He was also one of the MPs who pushed back a little bit on one of the things that Mkhwanazi said. For instance, the thing he pushed back on was the judiciary of it's late in the day when Julius Malema is the defender of the judiciary, a week after he was convicted. But in any case, so Mkhwanazi alleges that the judiciary is captured, and it's based purely on on a magistrate who issued the bail conditions on the CI head, Khumalo, said he may not enter any CI building, which is like a standard bail condition in that type of circumstances. So according to Mkhwanazi, that is why the judiciary is captured. And Malema pushed back. He said, well, it's overreach to say that the judiciary is captured based on magistrates issuing bail conditions, which I thought was a good point.
Yeah, so Malema was kind of flexing his, at this point, senior MP muscles.
Yeah, Also, he was also very not deferential, but very, he can get really hectic in parliamentary proceedings, but he was very soft-spoken, almost, I suppose you could say deferential towards Mkhwanazi. Most MPs were. It was very interesting.
Sure. Okay. Mkhwanazi then takes us down a little bit of a different path. He's quite, and we saw hints of this at Nhlanhla, he's quite upset about certain members of the media, certain Sunday publications, also taking aim at News 24 about, as we've alluded to at the beginning of our conversation, the revelations regarding this CI property deal that the current national top cop, Fani Maumela, had signed off of a multi-million rand deal. What did Mkhwanazi say exactly here? And it's prompted a response from the National Editors Forum.
Yeah, he said that basically intelligence operations should issue conduct a counterintelligence operation against journalists that's pretty hectic. I mean, that's this man is not a Democrat. Let's just be clear about that.
This sounds like the Forster regime.
Or the Stasi or whatever. It's like it's hectic. And again, when he doesn't want any scrutiny on CIA, because he repeatedly complained about a report that News 24 carried on Saturday, I think, the one you referred to, about Maumela's involvement in that whole CIA deal. He clearly does not want these things in the open. And he's willing to go and use state resources to go after people exposing it. It's really concerning.
Yeah, 100%. Journalists should be able to report on all aspects of a constitutional democracy as we know it, and we should be doing so without the threat of anything against us stopping us in that process. What did the MP say about that?
Not much.
Great.
I was really shocked about that. The only MP who questioned about that was ANC MP Kusela Diko. She's the chair of the Communications Committee. She said it was a bit of overreach to say that journalists should be, investigated by intelligence for doing their jobs.
Yeah.
But otherwise than that, I was a bit disappointed that MPs didn't take that up.
Nothing from the DA?
No.
Sure. Okay. They like to push the narrative of media freedom, etc. But anyway, I thought this was also quite interesting before we move to one of the more meatier parts of the discussion regarding Bikitsele, etc. Before we move to that, I was saying to you before our discussion, DA MP Ian Cameron, of course, he's the chairperson of the Police Portfolio Committee in Parliament, had an opportunity to also put forward the fact that, and we heard it again from the Nhlanhla Commission, that he allowed essentially Mkhwanazi to make that very first address to Parliament. It's one of the most watched YouTube Parliamentary Committee hearings. And essentially that's when Mkhwanazi first raises the flag around Brian Mkhwanazi, this mysterious associate of the now suspended minister. Cameron also said that he found it quite astounding that MPs then didn't really care too much about that revelation at the time.
Well, he's one of those MPs. He said something like along the lines of, we've heard a lot of chew on, we'll get back to it, and the committee never dealt with it. So what happened was, from what I gleaned from what Mkhwanazi and Cameron said yesterday, is that Mkhwanazi approached Cameron to attend that meeting and, say his piece. It was a 4-hour-long meeting, and towards the end that Mkhwanazi spoke, raising that Brian Mkhwanazi issue. And not much happened, well, not that I know of, happened from that,
It took a Nhlanhla Commission being set up. Yes. It took Mkhwanazi going very public in a press conference in order for this to be back on the agenda. Yeah, is that not a parliamentary oversight failure?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard testimony at the Nhlanhla Commission from the legal head of police who said Parliament didn't do its job. Mkhwanazi didn't go that far. He thanked Cameron for giving him the opportunity to speak.
It's the second time now.
Yeah, and he was he said he expressed his disappointment that nothing came from it, but also that he was glad that it kind of motivated him to go public, and that he's now in Parliament speaking about it.
Right. Okay. Political party funding came up.
Well, not political party funding, more like politician funding.
Yes, different politicians' campaigns within political parties.
So I think, Mkhwanazi didn't say it, but we believe that Brian Mkhwanazi was involved in CR17.
Yes.
So I got the impression that Mkhwanazi was kind of like reminding politicians, ANC politicians specifically, that they know about what's going on and that it would cause a lot of trouble if these things come out. The country will burn, he said. That's very Zuma-esque, to say, I've got intelligence. If you come after me, I'll make that intelligence known. That's very Zuma-esque. But I do think that there's probably a lot of material in that realm that and we know there's money exchanging hands during these conferences and elections and things, and that politicians need money for their own campaigns internally, and it is a murky world, and we need much more transparency there. It's actually one of the areas I do a lot of work in party funding. But it's almost impossible to get any information about that type of funding, that personal funding.
Yes, because there's thresholds to how much we can know about within the public domain.
The funding for politicians themselves.
Yes.
Because most of it is like dodgy.
Yeah.
And I mean, imagine if you're like running to be have a position in a political party, and you go around telling people, this guy paid me $1 million. This guy, I mean, nobody's going to vote for you. The public, I mean.
Yes, of course. It's all done in shady corners and cigar pubs.
Yeah.
But Mkhwanazi has told us something new in this parliamentary ad hoc committee that we hadn't heard in Mhlanga, and that they are investigating a trust fund linked to the now suspended Minister Mkhunu.
Yeah, that's like I would say that the biggest new thing.
Yes.
He said they're going to dig until they find gold, which is interesting.
Very interesting, and also that he's quite open about the fact that that's an ongoing investigation. On one premise is that just a...
he made it clear that he's the complainant. He's not the... He's the complainant. What they're doing is... or what he did was later complained about defeating the ends of justice. Sorry, it was a long two-night. Defeating the ends of justice... because of the closing of the political killing task team meant that certain cases wouldn't be investigated, and it involves Lieutenant General Sibiya because he took over the dockets.
By the way, the reports as we speak is that Sibiya may face arrest.
Yes,
and that currently as we speak, Jan and I, that report is currently being followed up, and stay tuned to the News 24 front page for the latest development. That's why I say the poppe is besig om te dans vandag.
That's why I was like considering what should I say, what has been confirmed. but the timing of this is very interesting, very, very interesting.
Right. Now, Bheki Cele and the CAT payments, talking about money exchanging hands. Not from what I gleaned from the testimony that Mkhwanazi gave, it's not necessarily Bheki Cele giving money to Vusi Cat Nhlanhla, but it's into a bank account that Vusi's aware of, and so there's communication between the two, allegedly.
Yes, so what Mkhwanazi testified to is that Cele, who appointed him as provincial commissioner, by the way, and he keeps referring to him as General Cele. But in any case, so Cele sent banking details to Cat Nhlanhla, and Nhlanhla paid money into that account. So what the investigation is trying to do is to link that money to Cele.
Sure. Okay, and this is, of course, off the back of News 24's investigations team finding on 3 different instances. One, Cele staying it over at a swanky Pretoria lodge that was linked to the CAT. There's the missed calls between Cele and the CAT on another occasion. And then the Zimbabwe Villa Lodge owned by Morgan Maumela that apparently was the location for Cele and the CAT. That we know of, that has been confirmed. Yeah, was any of that raised?
No, only that payment thingy. But Maumela is also having an interesting morning, I've got it.
Okay. I think we've covered quite a lot. Maumela, the current National Police Commissioner, he's he's in the hot seat at this particular committee. Anything major that he's...
So far, no. They've been covering a lot of background structural police issues type things with the evidence leaders. So far, nothing major coming out, but I think the poppe will be dancing again later this afternoon.
Okay, but he did say, the police is not in crisis.
I mean, he told that to the committee before as well, to the police ad hoc committee. But I mean, the police commissioner is not going to tell the people holding him to account, no, it's a mess, But again, the News 24 report, which will be featuring in the evidence later this afternoon. About Cat Nhlanhla's tender with the police.
Yes, the 360 million rand health services tender, which later got cancelled, and the various WhatsApp communications and exchanges allegedly happening amongst these. What do we even call them at this stage? I'm struggling to find the words, right? Because the rot is so deep at this point. Quick 2 points. before I let you go, and I know both of us need to go to lunch, whilst the Parliamentary Committee sits on lunch. I thought this was very interesting. I'm always trying to bring this whole story down to brass tacks and what it means to the average South African person. There are too many generals, too many chiefs, and too few Indians when it comes to the central command of the SAPS. That's what Mkhwanazi's basically affirmed.
And interestingly, Mkhwanazi and supports the DA's plan to decentralize the police into the provinces more power. So maybe that's why they didn't ask him difficult questions. I don't know. And it's been my long-standing observation from covering the police in this committee. There's sometimes before the Parliament burned down, the whole committee room would be full of generals. When they came to say the annual report or something. And if you look at the structure, there's definitely too many generals. It's something that come up now, and it muddies the reporting lines, and it complicates things, and what are they all doing? And also, some people are there for political gain, obviously.
Yeah, and we know, of course, Katiso Katie Malefe, the alleged death squad leader in Gauteng, as well as Vusi Musi Nhlanhla, are alleged to have made up the two of the five heads of this big five criminal cartel. But Mkhwanazi has still not given us the names of the three other elusive figures, right?
I mean, I've been quite critical of all the stuff he didn't want to say publicly, but that one makes sense. I mean, if you're investigating these guys, you can't, tell Parliament, we're investigating this guy.
Well, Mkhwanazi apparently being investigated.
Yeah, but we already knew that. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understood why they can't. I mean, obviously we want to know. Everybody wants to know, but I get why they're keeping that one secret. Yeah.
Sure, Jan. I think we need a big holiday after all of this.
No. I mean, the hours has been hectic. Like 2 nights, like deep into the night. And you have to concentrate the whole time because there's a lot of moving pieces to the story, like we said earlier.
Yeah, but you got a big shout out from the rest of the newsroom. Fantastic work. I love the analysis that you bring, as well as the context, as well as comments and theories. All fair game in our live blog on the front page of News 24 with the last headline, Maumela, police not in crisis, as our senior parliamentary correspondent Jan Gerber keeps us abreast of all the developments there. Jan, I'll see you on the other side of this mess.
Cool.
Hi, lead listeners. A quick update on the police action surrounding General Shadrack Sibiya's house. Now, the latest confirmation that we have at the time of taping the show, which came 1 or 2 hours after my conversation with Jan, was that heavily armed officers had indeed raided Sibiya's Centurion home earlier in the day in a search and seizure operation, though no one has been arrested. Mkhwanazi has claimed before the Parliamentary Committee that although he cannot claim at this stage that Sibiya is corrupt, it is alleged that Sibiya is an enabler of malfeasance within the police. What the police uncovered at Sibiya's home and what Sibiya is currently stating to the press are stories for follow-ups on the front page of News 24, so please do look out for that, which makes this a developing story.
Trending topic.
Moving to our trending topic today, it should have been a done deal. Instead, it turned into a figurative own goal in what's been dubbed Mokoena-gate, the recent Bafana Bafana fiasco in fielding a midfielder who shouldn't have played after picking up 2 yellow cards. Our South African football team have made their lives especially difficult now in securing qualification for next year's FIFA World Cup in North America. Now, the boys in yellow and green take on Zimbabwe and Rwanda next, both at home, and they have to win both to clinch a place in the grandest tournament of them all. Well, our News 24 sports journalist covering the Zim clash in Durban this Friday is Tashreeq Vardien. He joins us live now from the city. Tashreeq, how are you doing? Welcome to your debut edition of The Lead.
How's it going? All good, man.
Lekker brew. Okay.
How's things over there?
Yeah, I can't complain. I'm a bit jealous. You get to travel a little bit. It's always good to get out and about. And I'm now so invested and interested in our coming up 2 fixtures with both Zimbabwe and Rwanda. But let's start here for somebody who's perhaps missed this important context. What is Mokoena-gate in the most simple terms? In my mind's eye, it seems like the most bizarre development that I've seen in recent football history. Not even Bafana, but up and down the world.
The irony to it all began here in Durban. So I have to take you back to 2023, which was actually my first time here in the city covering Bafana and Benin. It it was a match in November, and Bafana Bafana had won. That is when the first of 2 yellow cards was picked up by Mokoena. Months later, in mid-2024, obviously against Zimbabwe, Mokoena picks up another yellow card. Then, fast forward, months later, again, early 2025, against Lesotho, is where Mokoena, who should have been suspended after picking 2 consecutive yellow cards, should have sat out, which then started the whole Mokoena-gate that lasted for about 7 months before FIFA eventually gave their ruling. But before FIFA actually gave their ruling, after that Lesotho match, it only took about 36 to about 42 hours later when, you know, our favorite foes, the passionate Super Eagles fans, picked up on that blip that not only the South African Football Association, but Bafana Bafana's team manager, Vincent Seka, messed up on that Mokoena should not have played that particular match. Fast forward, obviously, those hours later, the Nigerian fans picked up on that, and chaos obviously ensued. However, then 7 months later, last week, FIFA gave the verdict. Bafana docked 3 points, moves from first place, which guarantees you a direct ticket to the World Cup next year in the US, Mexico, and Canada, drops to second place, 11 points with Benin, but Benin holds a superior goal difference. So, yeah, nothing, when it comes to Bafana Bafana, and I love, nothing ends without a soapy-orientated feel when it comes to our national football team. And I'm sure you, with that giggle, you know this, obviously having followed the team since the yesteryears, since we've enjoyed the 90s and the early 2000s, and these past 2 decades, up until, I would say, about 12 to 24 months ago, things have, you know, rather been doomed, but in this past 12, 24 months has been, you know, blossomed. But obviously this past 7 months with this Mokoena-gate has sort of reminded us about that particular dark age which we experienced.
Yeah, 2 decades.
It was a reminder.
2 decades, Tashreeq, of a dark age. Quick one. The Sports Minister, Gator McKenzie's asked for an investigation here, right? And then just before we move on, and you know, I was chatting to your editor, Lloyd Bernard, just before you and I had this discussion now, and I was asking him just as I was walking through the newsroom, I was like, and the question for you, you know, Vincent should have known, Teboho should have known before he went out on field. You know, this is such a glaring error. It really baffles the minds. Surely the player himself should have picked this up. Yeah,
it's the kind of mediocrity that's often sprinkled in and around, you know, South African football. And it's the unfortunate thing. And what I like about this whole case is that Hugo Bruce himself came out and said, let's not blame Vincent, let's not blame Teboho. He even went further and said, now that you bring it up with Gator McKenzie, he said he doesn't want the sportsman to even investigate that further. It's an error, it's an error. Let's move on, let's kick on, let's focus on the positive. There's 2 matches in hand. We go and win that. Hopefully Benin slips up along the way and we score ourselves a World Cup ticket. But yeah, in saying that, it's very important that this turns into a very, very important lesson for not only South African football, but everyone in South Africa in itself, that we can't allow such errors to happen. We need to be razor sharp focused when it comes to these kinds of things.
100%. And we just can't afford it, especially, you know, when our sporting teams, our sporting superstars are firing on all cylinders as of late, from track and field to rugby to cricket. We really are in a fantastic age of South African sports at the moment. We're spoiled for choice week in, week out. And I think, you know, the Bafana Bafana team are in such a great, you know, run of form at the moment. They're seeing that as well, and they obviously want to subscribe to that general sort of zeitgeist of the moment. Okay. Let's go into this, Tashreeq. We were well on our way to qualifying, as you say. How do the current board standings look? Benin's at the top. We're still second. They've got a greater goal difference. And we now play Zimbabwe as well as Rwanda at home. Thankfully, both at home. One in Durban, one in Maumela. Certainly the bookies are looking at us, and we've got a bit of an odds in our favor at the moment, right?
The reason we have 2 home matches is because Zimbabwe, after obviously many years, they don't have a CAF-approved venue. Funny enough, this whole story, Bafana were this close to actually playing that particular tie in Botswana, which most likely could have caused somewhat of a stir. However, luckily, it turns out in our favor that we're playing that away match on home soil. And how it looks otherwise in the group, while Benin are first, South Africa on second, and we know the goal difference there. In third and fourth place, we have Nigeria and Rwanda, who are on 11 points, 3 points just below us, as well as 2 games in hand. And what's particularly interesting about that, we know how important our history is when it comes to Nigeria against them as well, and how hungry and how also determined, and how also, if I were to put Nigeria alongside Bafana, Nigeria will always somehow supersede Bafana,
yes,
just because of the sheer dominance they've had over the continent over the past decades. We know what they are capable of. However, in the current state of things, Bafana are really playing some of the best football on the continent. If Nigeria goes up against, and fun enough, Nigeria play one of their matches on South African home soil, because Lesotho, another country which we're familiar with, also don't have a CAF-approved stadium. They play their match up in the new Peter Mokaba Stadium, which adds a bit of spice to it. But I don't foresee Nigeria slipping up against Lesotho in that match. However, Nigeria do face Benin in their last match, and that's going to add some sort of interesting factor to that.
Yeah, when did Benin suddenly get so good at football? Am I missing something? I'm quite a casual sort of AFCON follower. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I back Bafana in any major tournament by default. I'm a Spurs supporter. We won't go into that discussion. But with Benin, am I missing something? Have they always been this good?
Yes and no. I say yes because at the same time, African football is such a in such a unique place that Bafana can go to Rwanda 2 years ago and lose 2-0. Rwanda are now sitting a foot as well in this group. South Africa last year or 2 years ago against South Sudan, another country, ended up just winning by slender margin 3-2. So we have these minnow countries, faring very well on African football. Cape Verde last year nearly had our ticket at the Africa Cup of Nations, and we had to go out and defeat them on penalties. So these African nations, they're putting up a fight. Sometimes they're not technically gifted, but there's that sheer will, there's heart, there's bravery, there's courage, there's the willingness to put your body on the line and fight for something as far greater than yourself and putting your country on the map. So as far as Benin is concerned, they may not just be particularly technically gifted as far as South Africa and Nigeria is concerned, but you can't discount them for heart and bravery and what they put on a pitch for 90 minutes.
Yeah. It's like to see an underdog story, bro. I love it. Okay, let's take a leaf from Coach Hugo Broos's book, and let's also put the Mokoena-gate for a side. We've discussed it now. It is what it is. We can't go back and change it. Let's hope, as you say, we can move on from it. Bafana is having a bit of a renaissance tour. It's got elements harking back to those great days with Benny McCarthy, with Andre Arendse, fantastic goalkeeping legend. You've got this great piece up on News 24, Shades of a Golden Era, Bafana Legends on Bruce's Boys, and a World Cup Dream that you penned alongside Atan Tsotsi. Tell us a little bit about that interview with Andre. What are they saying about seizing the moment at the moment?
Yeah, so one of my favorite things, obviously, is teaming up with your colleagues. And Tsotsi, I had a conversation with Andre, and I had a conversation with Aaron Mokoena. Andre was basically, his story is such a wonderful such a wonderful story and such a very interesting narrative where in those 90s, before the 1998 World Cup, he was, obviously we know in the 1996 he was cognizant in that Barker team that won the AFCON, South Africa's lone AFCON title that we often refer to in every second sentence when it comes to Bafana Bafana. And he was so important to that. Fast forward 2 years, he helped Bafana Bafana qualify for the 1998 World Cup. But in a warm-up match, he gets injured. He redeems himself, qualifies for, help Bafana Bafana qualify for the 2002 World Cup. Bafana Bafana obviously go out there and do very well. Don't go out to the group stages, but it's very important to see that in those two qualifiers, 1998 and 2002, with what Andre explained, is how the fans was really behind South Africa and how important it is for the nation to back the national team. He has now seen it with the Proteas. He has now seen it with the Springboks, and he has definitely seen it and been in that shoes during those phases in 1998 and 2002. When I spoke to Aaron Mokoena, he himself obviously felt the blip of failing to qualify for the 2006 World Cup, but at the same time, seeing what captaining a national team at the 2010 World Cup can do for a nation. So these stories, these narratives about two individuals, and they basically paint a picture on how important, firstly, fans is, and how important having a coach who, as you mentioned, Hugo Broos, a renaissance under his flagship, is now the longest-serving coach, and the recently passed Barker's near four-year tenure. So if I look at that and how important these legends are speaking about the current crop of players and what they have done and what they can certainly do next, they know what the stakes are, and they're really, really backing these boys to go all the way.
Yeah, 100%. Other than 1996, I often sometimes, I have it saved under my liked videos on YouTube. I'll go look at Siphiwe Tshabalala's opening goal against Mexico in 2010, bro. I think every South African knows exactly where they were when that first goal screamed into the back of the net. It was absolutely triumphant, and I honestly still get goosebumps to this day.
Honestly, do still get goosebumps. I remember clearly where I was, and I was in a store at the waterfront because, lo and behold,
you joking? I was in the water. I was in the waterfront as well, except I was a waiter at a restaurant.
I was at the store. I mean, Graham, you know, Cape Town was absolutely
pumping.
Insanity for that game.
Pumping.
It was full in every corner in the CBD, and my friends and I, we had nowhere to go. The fan parks were literally full hours before kickoff already. Literally hours before kickoff, the fan was full. And we ended up at the waterfront. The waterfront was jam-packed, and we just ended up in the shop. They were like, yo, come through. And we started a thing at the shop. And that first goal, that when it hit the top of the net, I could not believe my eyes. And I think it still gives me chills even thinking about it today.
Yeah, 100%, man. Okay, back to reality now. When we look at Zimbabwe, they're not necessarily, people think, when they think of Zimbabwe, they think, okay, they were once upon a time fairly good cricketers. They're not so bad anymore. And then they think of football and they think, there should be an easy walkover for Bafana Bafana. But in actual fact, they've got a fair track record of wins against us. So it's not necessarily just a quick walk-in. We can get one goal and sort of, park the bus for the rest of the game. We actually need to win decisively to avoid an upset here, right?
Yeah, hopefully if we can go into this match and score a couple of goals and not concede any. Because if you look at that record against Zimbabwe, although what I like about this record is that although we've played 19 times and having won, I think 9 times, they won 9 times, and as compared to Zimbabwe 7, is that Zimbabwe has only won literally on merit one important game, which was after the 1992 Bafana Bafana was obviously reinstated. And then it was during a World Cup qualifier and Zimbabwe won. Obviously, that team from Zimbabwe was obviously stacked with Peter Ndlovu and other big names, including, Liverpool legend Bruce Grobbelaar. Thereafter, Zimbabwe don't really have somewhat of a grip on Bafana Bafana. Although they have victories, the victories and the draws that have come for Zimbabwe has been in international friendlies and COSAFA Cup matches. Those matches are considerably known as the lesser-known matches. For Bafana Bafana, most of their victories have come, obviously, in Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers, sometimes at AFCON. Bear in mind, Zimbabwe are also in our group at the 2025-2026 Africa Cup of Nations that kicks off in December. Most of the victories that Bafana Bafana have over them are in World Cup qualifiers and AFCON qualifiers, as well as AFCON matches. So that puts Bafana Bafana in a good state and a mental sort of, mental positivity, for lack of a better term, over, our neighbors.
Yeah, 100%. I don't want us to put the cart before the horse before we discuss Rwanda, because I feel like you and I are going to have another discussion before that match again, because I really would like to and look forward to that. Let's end off here. What's on the rest of your sporting diary for the rest of today as we lead up to the match at 6 p.m. on Friday?
Okay, so today already at about 3 o'clock, I'll be at the Moses Mabhida Stadium for the match day one press conferences. Hugo Bruce alongside Ronwen Williams will address the media before training. Half an hour after training, Zimbabwe head coaches and captain will address the media as before they go to training. And then on Friday as well, I'm back early at the stadium, chatting to fans. You can follow our live update on News 24. It will be live from 2 p.m. already. I'll be chatting to fans. I'll be chatting to interesting people that are at the match who hopefully comes early. It's a big game. I'm expecting a huge crowd to pull through. And tickets are not as expensive as the Springbok tickets. Clip that.
Yeah, 100%, bro. And that's something to celebrate. How much of a difference? Do you know?
Big difference. I think it's the Bok tickets. Obviously, it ranges from about 250, 300 rand, way up to like 4,000 rand, 3,000 rand. Whereas Bafana tickets ranges from 60 rand up to 300 rand.
Sure, what a score, what a deal, bro. And I feel like we've got it in us. Touch wood that we're gonna clinch this thing, bro. Where can anybody follow you on socials, Tashreeq?
As per usual, Tashreeq Vardien on Twitter, Instagram. That's it.
Lekker, bro. Okay, looking forward to the game. Let's chat after that. We'll decompress, get ready for Rwanda, because that, whether we like it or not, that game is also going to happen. Let's hope Benin loses all of their games as well and has a terrible goal difference. We can finally see Bafana Bafana playing in a World Cup again. Thanks for your time today and good luck.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Graham. Cheers.
And finally,
ending off with On This Day in South African History, the 9th of October 2005. South African Lance Dyer had made international headlines after pulling off one of the most dangerous and bizarre stunts in modern travel history. Well, the 38-year-old, I've never heard of this story before, by the way, the 38-year-old was arrested by French police after walking through the Channel Tunnel, that's the high-speed rail link between England and France, wearing only flip-flops. So only a South African would do that. Trains speeding past at over 160 kilometers an hour create a powerful vacuum that can pull anyone nearby into their path. Yet, this Mzansi resident somehow survived the 15-hour trek. Eurotunnel officials later suggested that he may have taken advantage of a temporary malfunction in the surveillance system, and when he finally emerged on the other side in Calais, he was reportedly disoriented and rambling. French authorities immediately arrested him and handed him over to British police, who had then charged him with public nuisance and endangering life. It remains a mystery how Lance Dyer managed to cheat death in one of the world's most dangerous tunnels. Hey, only a South African. Courtesy South African History, online on this day, the 9th of October 2005. The more you know. I wonder if that one's on a Chappie's wrapper. Remember our lead WhatsApp line, that number's 072-562-3179. If you'd like to mail us, thelead@24.com, and to hit like, follow and subscribe. That way you'll be notified of our next editions dropping on Monday as clockwork at 7 p.m. Every day of the week, Monday to Thursday next week. That's Spotify, Apple and YouTube. My name's Graham Robenheimer. And folks, it's so important, but as long as there's trusted news first, credibly checked, then we'll have the lead on News 24.